Today we're very fortunate to be able to talk to Sir John Whitmore, who many people say is the father of coaching.
What we are really trying to do here is to give children as often as we can, and this is what parents should be doing, as often as they can, giving their children choices so the child can say what they want to wear today, or whether they're going to wear a sweater when they go out, or who they want to play with, or what they want to play with at any time. So if a child can make more choices, what happens is they then experience the consequence of the choice they make. So if they decide to go out without a sweater and they feel cold, they will begin to relate the choice they made not to go out with a sweater and being cold. So they learn to make better choices. And that's a very, very important for young people. Unfortunately, too many parents and too many teachers spend a lot of time saying to children, do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that, do this now, do that now, and so on. And then the children do not develop their own personal sense of self-responsibility, which what really needs to happen. And all parents are very much happier when their children become actually self-responsible and can make their own choices, and they're making responsible choices. So when you start off, the parents can start asking those odd questions when the child is only 2 or 3 years old. But then as the child gets older, they have slightly more, shall we say, consequential results from the choice they make. And so those things get a little harder as they go, so they learn in a sequence that starts fairly easy questions and so on, and then as they go forward they get more challenging questions and more challenging answers that they have to say. Now, over years, of course, I mean, by the time they've done this for some time, let's say you've had questions in the family for about 5 years, by now you've got children who've had a lot of choices and a lot of consequences, so they're much better at making choice and consequences. So when now life's getting a bit more dangerous, because at a certain time, do they want to join a gang, do they want to carry a knife, unfortunately, as some kids want to do, and those sort of more risky choices, and then that goes on later to alcohol or drugs or anything like that begins to come up as they get older. But if they've had a lot of choice making when they've been young and they've learned the consequences of the choices, they're much better at making choices. And then the other thing is, of course, that when children get to their adolescent age, a lot of children are quite rebellious when they get to their adolescent age, aren't they? They sort of fight for things. Now, what are they fighting for? They're actually fighting for their own choices and their own responsibility. So the great thing about parents is to start the choice making early, giving the children the opportunity to make their choices, and then when they get to adolescence, the children have just grown up with having choices, and then they don't have to rebel so much because they've got what they need. Children behaving badly in their adolescence is very largely due to the parents not giving them enough choice earlier than that. So this is a very, very important factor. Obviously, when you can start talking to your children in that way, there are other things that might require more of a discussion than just, what do you want to do? You might say to a child, you might add in a question, well, if you did that, what would happen? And that sort of thing. So there may be a few questions like that, and I'm just going to give you a sequence in which it's very useful to ask the questions. The first question is obviously, what do you want? So it's what do you want to do, what do you want to wear, or whatever it may be. And the second is, well, what's the situation now? Which in the clothing case, well, how cold is it now? So the child can identify what the current situation is. And then you go to the next stage, which is what we call the options. So, okay, if that is how cold it is, what are you going to wear? What could you wear? What are you going to choose to wear? What do you want on your feet, for example? Are you going to go into the snow, And that we call options. And then the last one is what we call the will, which is what you decide to do. So it's decision time now. So you've looked at the options, you've seen the situation, you know what you want. Okay, what's your decision? So we have a thing called the GROW sequence, which is goal at the beginning, the goal, what do you want? Second question is, what is the reality now, which we call R. So you've got GR, then you've got options, that is, what choices have you got available to you, and then the W, that's the obviously the O, and then the W at the end is, this is the will or the determination to do something. So we've got what we call the GROW sequence, and it's just a useful chronological sequence. But just to conclude, what you're working on all the time with young people, and this happens in coaching in professional world, what you're trying to do is to build their awareness so that they're very aware of what's going on, and then they're making a decision around that awareness. And that's what the coaching process is when they grow up. But that's so important in the young age to bring that in.
Absolutely, that's really fantastic and very powerfully put, John. Thank you. I think it's also more important these days when there's so many external influences on our young people, so that the more responsible they can become at the earliest possible age, the more rounded they'll grow up.
Yeah, this is very true at this time. The time that we're living in now is a time of a lot of change and a lot of unexpected changes with the economy and the environmental issues and the insecurity and some violence on the street and all sorts of things going on. And children need more than ever to be able to make good choices of how they're going to deal with these circumstances when they are suddenly faced with them. So it's very, very important for children to have this process, and the time to begin is early on with the parents and later with the school teachers.
Brilliant. And of course that starts to open up the potential that our fabulous young people can achieve, doesn't it?
Yeah. You will find that if you treat children in this way, it's extraordinary what they can achieve. And the great thing about children like that is when they begin to get the confidence of being self-responsible, being able to manage choices themselves, actually they're very helpful. They sometimes even start teaching their parents a bit.
That's when the parents are open enough to hear it.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
That's fantastic. Thanks very much for sharing that, John.
All right, well I hope it's useful for all the people who see this film.
I'm sure it will be. Thank you.
Okay, all right, bye.